Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. I'm going to talk about retirement, and I'm going to talk about it in the context of Donald Trump's repulsive, disgusting, inadequate, I don't know what other adjectives to use, but it's a terrible policy in relation to tariffs. Everybody thinks so, except for Donald Trump, the orange moron, who has got no idea of what it's like living in the real world. In fact, what he has done has impacted the world in its most disgusting, deplorable way, because he hasn't taken into consideration for one moment the fact that there will be millions of people around the world who are going to be impacted by his tariffs. And I need to add, I am one of those people, because I've noticed that the retirement benefit that my wife and I have has decreased by thousands of dollars over the last week as a result of these tariffs. Now, we don't have a lot of money. We have some retirement benefits, but, it's supposed to last us for another 10, 15 years, however long it is that we plan to be here, as long as possible, I hope. But nevertheless, that time for us is limited. But Donald Trump is determined to make life painful for all of us. So, what we need to do is to let people know, I guess, how this is affecting every one of us, not just those people in the United States. How this clown has decided that it is in his interest, in the American interest, to punish other people for things which he himself and their country has created. The greed that is the United States has created a problem, which they see as a problem, the rest of the world doesn't, but the United States, and through the eyes of Donald Trump, see it as a problem because the exchange of trade around the world has become so intricate, so involved in one company producing a particular part, another company producing another particular part in different parts of the world, sending it to a factory somewhere where it's all put together. Now, this has happened primarily because corporations in the United States wanted to make as much profit as they could, so they went and they looked for markets in which it cost them the least amount of money to be able to manufacture a particular item. So they went to places like China, Vietnam, Cambodia, and others where, unfortunately, their employees are exploited. But the corporations, the USA, allowed that to happen. They saw it as a good thing. And so they created this problem. The other amazing thing is that wherever Trump gets his products from that he markets and he sells around the world, like the Bible or his shoes or whatever it is that he's trying to capitalise on, all those products are made in China. The United States doesn't make clothing. Clothing is made elsewhere, in Vietnam, Cambodia. The other bizarre story that came out of all of this was the fact that in Botswana, they have been tariffed at 38%. Now, they've been tariffed at 38% because they mine diamonds. So America doesn't mine diamonds. It just doesn't. So as a result, that's all places like Botswana have are these diamonds. So as a result, they've been tariffed. Now that affects, I'm sure that in that country they exploit people, have child labour, terrible conditions, whatever. But and the Americans are still going to buy diamonds because they don't produce them themselves. So the price of diamonds is going to go up, or they're going to sell less diamonds around the world in the United States, but at the end of the day, that particular country is going to suffer. Those people who are suffering already are going to be suffering more. So where does any of this end? What is it that we could do in order to make a difference? Well, we can object, and we can start to think about, I think, taking our money and our resources away from the United States. Australia, in its wisdom, chose to advocate for some concessions around our tariffs because we have so much invested in retirement funds in the United States. We invest more in retirement than any other country. Now, it's a good thing for us as Australians. It's a great policy to have. It encourages people to be able to retire and feel secure. But most of that money is in the United States. Now, I don't know how this works financially, but it would be helpful, I guess, if we didn't have as many funds in the US as we do. So we should withdraw them, place them in European stock exchanges, the EU stock exchange, whatever. We should find other ways to do this as opposed to what we're currently doing. The world should decide that it's going to have a series of blocks. So there'll be blocks in Asia, which will be Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, other smaller countries, and the Philippines, and Indonesia, and China, and Australia. And that should be one block, and we should all trade with each other. And that Europe should have another, and perhaps we trade with them as well. And South Africa has another block, and we all should trade with them. And then there's South America, and we all should trade with them, and Canada. And just leave the United States as some sort of isolated pariah that just sits out there on its own, doing its own thing, but without any impact from us, where we're doing nothing to support you, to make you suffer for the way that you've behaved around exploiting other countries because of the low costs of employing staff to manufacture goods that you want. You know, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, but it's affecting all of us. And personally, it's affecting myself and my wife. And at some point, we need to say enough is enough. We can have these demonstrations in the US, and they had over the weekend some 1,400 of them. But, we need to say to the United States, bugger off. You're no longer that important to us, and as a result, you need to find another way to survive because we're not going to help you at all. Your greed has created this problem. And Donald Trump, which is a non-problem because things could have just motored on as they were, but Donald Trump's had this thing in his head since the mid-'80s, and he's obsessed by it. And it doesn't matter what people tell him. It doesn't matter what conversations he has with people that actually know better than he does. Nothing's going to change. This is the way it's going to be. You're not going to be able to create the manufacturing base that you want in the United States. It just will not happen. It's a fantasy. In the meantime, you're going to cause people like myself to suffer through your idiocy. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have you been impacted by what Trump has done? Let me know. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.